Okay, these guys satisfied no one. The non-woke crowd thought they were pandery garbage, and the woke crowd thought they were insulting caricatures. Here's my bad redesigns. The main problems people have were the names, the bland designs, and the stupid origin stories. First off, drop the twins angle. I have twins in my family, not as interesting as it sounds. Just minor confusion during family get-togethers. Same with the embracing the names thing. If it's not within a community, it just seems imposed. Snowflake! His true face should be a mystery. He's permanently covered in harsh ice, and his impression is of someone who's permanently in a blizzard, i.e. he's either someone who always feels like they're in a storm, or someone capable of making one. His power is generating snowstorms, and probably more than that. He got these powers by opening up a freezer to save people who looked like they were dying of cold, unintentionally knocking over illegal chemicals that gave him unusual powers. He is physically very unprotected, not very confident in his decisions, and needs pep talks from himself or others to maintain control. Otherwise, he has two settings: full freezing blizzard or nothing. Also, that would be his name, Blizzard. Snowflake is lame, and ice shurikens would only be cool on a Pokemon. Basically, think Sub-Zero and Glacius's look, with powers akin to Storm and a weakness similar to Mr. Freeze. His body naturally generates sharp ice shards from his head, and if these are enclosed for too long, he'd basically choke himself to death, so he needs to find people to fight to prevent his powers from hurting himself. His personality flaws would be something similar to Rogue, because he also hurts everyone he touches and feels isolated even when he's around people. One character in, and you probably already think I'm an untalented strawberry picker who isn't worthy of opinion, but I want to emphasize that I'm at least trying to work the spirit of the names into the characters and not just go for lip service. Safe space. So basically cannot function for too long outside of their specially designated chair. Almost sort of a neat equivalent, where they are completely out of touch with the outside world but can be at peace in this place. Being outside is an inherently stressful situation for them, so their personality flaw would be that their heightened mental stress would give way for terrible decisions. I'd have his origin be a mystery, but give an implication that it caused a lot of people to die, with the mystery being if it was ultimately he who did it. I'd also just rip off Metron in Final Crisis for his look, but I'd probably armor the hell out of his suit, similar to Dr. Fate in Injustice. After all, he probably doesn't want gore all over himself. His power would be that he can create bubbles of vacuum. This can go two ways. He can either create a gaseous vacuum that merely takes all the air out and creates a shockwave, or he can create a space that rips all matter to the outside of the bubble, enabling some scary and disturbing last resort options. This also fuels his mental deterioration, that whatever his previous trauma is, they're also being fueled by being responsible for some grisly murders. So basically, just doing his thing is making him more reliant on his safe space, and he relies on trustable outside information to stay informed of anything. Also, I changed his name to Bubble, as in living in his own bubble. Yeah, also a weird name, but at least it's unique and only really tied to child molestation. Nothing too shocking. Type B negative. The name is only kind of lame, but why not just use his real name like Morbius does? If you're gonna be a tryhard, you might as well call yourself something like Grim A. Vampire or John E. Blood. Or go for the JoJo style and name him after a band he's fond of. Pumpkin Smasher? Corgan Billy? Of all the characters, he seems the most alright. Basically just a tryhard vampire who listens to older music. Pretty lame as a key detail, but not unreasonable. He just doesn't really have a hook. His design is somewhat bland, and he has no ass. You have a vampire wearing all leather, and he has no ass and isn't exposing his chest at all. Who makes these decisions? If I was to give him a workable hook, it's that he feels disconnected with no other vampires and secretly wants to turn everyone around him into vampire slaves and be their king to gain both a sense of superiority, but also companionship. Or just rip off Raven and give him a secret vampire demon that will eventually use him to gain power. Either works. Now that I've proven that I can only come up with derivative designs and have way too many characters with the same issues, I want to point out that the team dynamic I would set up from the start is a general lack of communication, of issues, where everyone has similar problems but no one's willing to open up and make them feel like they're not alone. Kinda like Young Justice, but with no robot uncles to give advice. Screen time! Okay, there is so much wrong with this guy's description and look, so I'll just keep the broad ideas. Guy who's capable of finding answers and is very good at scouring the internet. So you know how the question is really cool and sneaky? Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna make this guy a forum hunter who goes through every information stream available to find answers to hard-to-find questions. The source of his powers would be known as a Black Ops military experiment that he was snooping on, but you wouldn't actually know what his powers are. I wouldn't explicitly say his powers because his gimmick would be looking like a rat-faced gremlin who gets into weirdly obscure locations to listen in on what he can't find online. Basically like Randall from Recess, but with a weird body type like Chibi Umaru Doma and a gaudy costume like iDubbbz wearing the Tingle costume. All strangely specific, but I like the idea of someone constantly on the hunt for unknown or dramatic information, but doing so in the most bizarre manner possible. Someone who seems like they shouldn't be good at all at hiding and yet weirdly is. I'd also make them Eastern European, probably Montenegro, because what I've seen is any indication, weird shit just happens there, and this wouldn't be frowned upon at all. So my interpretation of what screen time should be is in and of itself an indication of why their approach towards the new Warriors is flawed. They aren't trying to capture a generation, they're capturing a snapshot. Time always moves forward, and these guys will probably be out of date before even the third issue is out. Even my interpretation is dated. It references a show I watched in elementary school, an anime from like 6 years ago, that was first a manga from 8 years ago, and the human reference that I used is slowly starting to have his core audience turn on him, so he'd be out of date soon enough too. Hence, if I was to focus on a new generation, I wouldn't use blanket buzzwords or surface-level stereotypes. I'd capture the intrinsic feelings. A feeling of no self-worth or a solid confidence, so everything that challenges you too strongly breaks your composure. Anxieties overcoming your ability so strongly that you need a place to recover before you can even function. A distrust of authority so strong that you must find your own methods of discovering the truth, all the while refusing to give up what makes you who you are. An innate dissatisfaction with the decisions of the community at large. I'm not trying to point out that I'm smart or anything. I'm just saying that I definitely thought this through more than the original guys. Finally, the laziest character, Trailblazer. Her power is that she has infinite pockets of random stuff. That's fucking lame and also not fitting for her name. This feels like a gimmick stapled onto a character that had nothing, like the answer to a trivia question. How did Deadpool get his lol random backpack? He stole it from Trailblazer after she died of diabetes. Trailblazer isn't a bad name though, so I'd give her a new set of powers and gear. Basically make her a protege of Iron Fist with a power to imbue vitality and strength to herself and her allies, but only when she knocks someone out. She learned this technique through an ancient grandmaster that she listened in on at the senior center she works at. She was the only one willing to help an elderly one, so they passed valuable knowledge. She works as a pivot in fights, capable of completely murdering entire armies if she goes unchecked, but is much worse against a single opponent and isn't conditioned for long battles with no victories. Basically, a more human version of the Juggernaut. Look-wise, I'd have her wearing stylish MMA gear akin to Melvin Manhoof. I'd even keep her body type, because once you hang around old people long enough, you completely stop giving a shit about your look. I'd probably also give her body language and a haggard look akin to Big Country Roy Nelson or Tank Abbott. MMA might be a weird inspiration for superheroes, as it's often seen as the boring reality of fights, but given her theming of ordinary people becoming strong, I think this would be more fitting than having everything handed to you from a god playing a prank or whatever. Now I'm sure you're saying to yourself, Carlos, you hoe-ass monkey, your ideas are terrible, why did you make a video response to this? Here's the thing, I'm not trying to highlight my own lack of artistry or writing chops, it's meant to show that there are multiple different layers that they did not think through. A gender and ethnicity difference is not a hook, it's a flavor difference. Spider-Man isn't interesting because he's a white New Yorker. He's interesting because of his character flaws that have caused him regret, and his determination through so much sadness, with his hook being his fun antics as Spider-Man. This can transcend racial barriers as Spider-Man is basically popular fucking everywhere. He would also be less cool if his name was just guilt or responsibility. Even stuff partially maligned has components they clearly thought through. Kamala Khan is a good character for her teen drama stuff. Her superhero work is rather pedestrian, but that's not her hook. Miss America feels like it's written for women. Fucking hell. Oh yeah, this is the one I was like, yeah, I kind of went in on this one. Miss America feels like it was written for white women who think they're cool for having Latina friends with how non-compelling the main character is. but at least white women is a demographic who could like it. I can't see anyone liking the new Warriors as they are, as most of them are one-note caricatures, and the one who does have an interesting design doesn't go all in for the appeal his style usually goes for. This has resulted in bad publicity for the creative team of Marvel. Maybe they wanted to top DC's bad publicity from last year. They actually have stuff to showcase, like Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man, which has been holding good reviews. Immortal Hulk is seen by many as the comeback of a lifetime. Absolute Carnage did well last year, and the latest Daredevil run seems well received. It seems like Marvel and DC just can't push their best materials to new audiences. They go for the low-hanging fruit, and look even more embarrassing when they still miss. So the war between the tryhards and the nanny state continues, with the nanny state attempting tryhard tactics and blowing up their own allies. I'm sure the tryhards will celebrate by gaining support for their unremarkable and bare minimum stories. The takeaway from all this, don't trust bald people. Yeah, if you're a regular viewer, this might be a bit out of nowhere, because I think this is the only comic video I've ever made. I'm a semi-casual comic fan. It's more akin to I have my own weird niches that I just keep tabs on, and then once something seems really interesting, I kind of go in. But I think that's a lot of people. So anyway, I hope this was at least somewhat entertaining or interesting. At the very least, I can say that I probably put more effort into my ideas than they did. Then again, I'm almost certain this was editorial mandate.